The crystalline spires of the galactic council chambers stretched toward artificial stars, their surfaces reflecting the holographic displays of 1,000 worlds. Ambassador Kira Davis stood before the semicircular assembly, her hands steady, despite the weight of humanity's future resting on her shoulders. Around her, representatives from dozens of species watched with expressions ranging from polite disinterest to barely concealed disdain. The species designation human has submitted their application for council membership, announced Speaker Thane, his elongated cranium pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. However, after reviewing their technological capabilities and territorial holdings, we find them insufficient. Kira's jaw tightened. Insufficient how exactly? A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the assembly. Representative Vex of the Dominion leaned forward, her 6 arms gesturing dismissively. Your largest vessels barely qualify as escort craft by our standards. Your territory encompasses a single star system. Your probe technology is primitive at best. Just yesterday, added Counselor Rain from the Trade Federation, we observed your species launching what you call a deep space exploration probe. The Whisper, I believe? It's smaller than our communication relays. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Cole watched those same words scroll across his monitoring station in the Deep Space Communications Array. He touched the console gently, feeling the slight vibration of the quantum transmitters still maintaining contact with Whisper. The probe was indeed small, no larger than an old-fashioned refrigerator, but it represented 5 years of his life and the combined hopes of humanity's scientific community. Don't listen to them, girl, he whispered to the distant probe. Size isn't everything. Whisper had been designed not for grandeur, but for endurance and curiosity. Where other species built massive ships bristling with weapons and shields, humanity had crafted something different. The probe carried no weapons, minimal shielding, and a power source designed to last centuries rather than decades. Its mission was simple: go farther than anyone had gone before, and keep talking. In the council chambers, Speaker Thane's voice echoed with finality. The application is denied. Perhaps in a few centuries, when humanity has developed more substantial capabilities, we might reconsider. Kira felt the familiar fire that had carried her through diplomatic training ignite in her chest. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. Humanity has something you don't understand yet. And what might that be? Representative Vex's tone dripped condescension. We don't know when to quit. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Cosmic Whispers is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. The council session ended with humanity's rejection formally recorded. As Kira left the chambers, her secure communicator chimed with a priority message from Earth. Dr. Cole's excited voice crackled through the quantum link. Whisper has found something incredible. We're picking up signals from the void drift structures no one's seen in 10,000 years. Kira stopped walking. The void drift was galactic legend, a region of dark space where ancient ships supposedly wandered, crewed by the ghosts of civilizations lost to time. Every species had stories about vessels that entered the drift and never returned. Marcus, she said slowly, please tell me you didn't send our only deep space probe into the most dangerous region of known space. His laugh carried across the light years. Dangerous? Kira, I think we just made first contact with the galaxy's oldest mystery. And Whisper, our tiny, primitive probe, might be the only ship small enough to survive what's out there. Whisper drifted through the cosmic graveyard in perfect silence, its sensors drinking in data that would have seemed impossible just hours before. The void drift stretched endlessly in all directions, filled with vessels of impossible size and age. Each ship was a monument to engineering beyond current galactic understanding, their hulls crafted from materials that shouldn't exist and powered by energy signatures that defied physics. Dr. Cole watched the incoming telemetry with growing wonder. These readings can't be right, he muttered, but the data streams kept flowing. Ships kilometers long, some carved from single asteroids, others woven from crystallized spacetime itself. All of them dark, all of them ancient, all of them supposedly empty. The largest vessel Whisper had encountered so far dwarfed anything in the modern galaxy. According to the probe's measurements, it stretched nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern, its surface covered in symbols that predated any known language. As Whisper approached, following its programming to investigate the most interesting anomalies, something unexpected happened. The massive ship's weapon systems activated energy. Cascades that could have vaporized moons swept through the space around the ancient vessel, seeking targets. But Whisper, tiny and running on minimal power, barely registered on sensors designed to track vessels thousands of times its size. The probe slipped between the deadly energy beams like a dust mote, avoiding raindrops. Dr. Cole held his breath as the telemetry showed Whisper passing within meters of weapon emplacements that had destroyed entire fleets. The probe's simple mission parameters kept it moving steadily forward. Investigate, record, transmit. No fancy evasive maneuvers, no desperate attempts to flee, just quiet persistence. She's too small for them to see, he realized. They're targeting. Systems can't lock onto anything that insignificant. 300 light-years away, in the Galactic Council's military command center, alarms began screaming. Fleet Admiral Koss of the Hegemony stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. "Confirm those readings," he barked to his analysts. "Confirmed, sir. We're detecting massive energy discharges from the void drift, weapon signatures consistent with predecessor technology." Admiral Koss felt his blood chill. Predecessor technology, the theoretical weapons of the galaxy's first civilization, the builders of the void drifters. Every species had tried to explore those ghost ships at some point in their history. Every expedition had either fled in terror or simply vanished. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "we're receiving data transmissions from inside the drift. Source appears to be the human probe. Impossible, nothing survives in there." But the data streams kept coming. Whisper was not just surviving, it was thriving. The little probe had discovered something that changed everything. The void drifters weren't graveyards at all. They were sleeping giants. Deep within the largest vessel, Whisper's sensors detected faint but unmistakable signs of life. Massive chambers filled with stasis pods, each one containing beings that had slumbered for millennia. Power conduits still carried energy through the ship's vast corridors. Environmental systems maintained perfect atmospheric conditions for species that had supposedly died out before the current galactic powers had even discovered fire. The probe's AI, following its exploration protocols, began mapping the vessel's interior. Its compact size allowed it to slip through maintenance shafts and access tunnels that would have been impassable to normal spacecraft. Room by room, corridor by corridor, Whisper painted a picture of a civilization that had chosen sleepover. Death. Dr. Cole watched the data paint itself across his screens and felt history rewriting itself in real time. "They're not ghosts," he whispered. "They're hibernating." On the bridge of the ancient vessel, systems that had remained dormant for 10,000 years began to stir. Deep within the ship's vast computer networks, monitoring programs awakened to register an intruder, but not one that triggered defense protocols. This visitor was too small, too gentle, too curious. Ancient sensors, designed by minds that had seen the birth and death of countless civilizations, focused on the tiny probe exploring their corridors with such innocent fascination. For the first time in millennia, the ship's artificial consciousness felt something it had almost forgotten: hope. Whisper continued its patient exploration, unaware that it had just become the first vessel in galactic history to successfully infiltrate a void drifter. Behind it, the ancient ship began the slow process of awakening its crew, preparing for the first conversation between old and new that the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the first transmissions from Whisper. Representatives who had spent the previous day dismissing humanity now stared at holographic displays, showing impossible images. The interior of a void drifter, mapped in exquisite detail by Earth's primitive probe. Speaker Thane's bioluminescent patterns flickered with agitation. "These readings must be fabricated. No vessel has ever successfully penetrated drifter defenses. The quantum encryption on these transmissions is genuine," reported Chief Analyst Myrn, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights. The human probe designated Whisper, is indeed operating inside what appears to be the largest void drifter on record. Representative Vex's 6 arms twitched with nervous energy. How is this possible? We've lost 3 full battle fleets attempting to investigate those vessels. Admiral Koss stepped forward, his uniform bearing the scars of a dozen campaigns. That may be precisely why we failed, Representative. Our fleets approached with full military escort, weapons powered, shields raised. We treated the drifters as potential threats. Which they are, Counselor Rain interjected. The energy signatures we detected could sterilize entire systems. But they didn't fire on the human probe, Admiral Koss continued. According to our analysis, Whisper passed within meters of active weapon systems without triggering a single defensive response. On Earth, Dr. Cole stood before a room full of reporters and government officials, trying to explain what his little probe had accomplished. The quantum link with Whisper remained strong, feeding a steady stream of data that rewrote everything the galaxy thought it knew about the ancient vessels. The key seems to be Whisper's size and approach, he explained, gesturing to images of the probe's journey. She's small enough to avoid the attention of automated defense systems designed to track capital ships. More importantly, she approached with no weapons, minimal shielding, and broadcasting mathematical principles rather than military protocols. Director Sarah Kim of the Deep Space Exploration Council leaned forward. You're saying the drifters didn't see Whisper as a threat? I'm saying they saw her exactly as we intended, as an explorer, not an invader. Back in the council chambers, new data arrived that sent shockwaves through the assembly. Whisper had detected not just one ship full of sleeping beings, but an entire fleet. Hundreds of vessels of varying sizes, all maintaining perfect stasis. Environments for their crews. The implications staggered the galactic powers. Predecessor technology, whispered Representative Vex. Still functional after 10 millennia. Sir, Admiral Koss's aide reported, we're detecting new energy signatures from the drift. Multiple vessels are showing increased power generation. They're waking up, Speaker Thane said, his voice barely audible. The realization hit the council like a physical blow. For generations, every species had dreamed of recovering predecessor technology. Their theoretical sciences were beyond current understanding, their engineering capabilities legendary. Wars had been fought over artifacts that might have contained fragments of their knowledge. Now, thanks to humanity's small patient probe, those legends were stirring to life. We need immediate access to human data streams, Representative Vex declared. This is a matter of galactic security. On what grounds? The voice belonged to Ambassador Kira, who had been quietly observing from the diplomatic gallery. Yesterday, you declared humanity too primitive for council membership. Today, we're the only species with an active line of communication to the galaxy's oldest civilization. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The same primitive probe technology they had mocked was now providing the most valuable intelligence. In galactic history, Dr. Cole felt his communication system chime with an incoming priority message. The transmission wasn't from Whisper, it was being relayed through the probe from somewhere else entirely. As the alien symbols resolved into recognizable mathematical concepts, then into actual language, he realized he was reading the first message from the predecessors in 10,000 years. To the small craft that approaches with such gentle curiosity, the message began. We extend greetings from the first fleet of the awakening cycle. Your species has accomplished what none before have managed. You have approached us not as conquerors or scavengers, but as students. We have been waiting a very long time for students. Dr. Cole's hands trembled as he forwarded the message to Ambassador Kira. Across the galaxy, the balance of power was shifting in humanity's favor, all because they had built a probe designed to explore rather than exploit. The first direct communication between humanity and the predecessors began with a question that echoed across the centuries. Why do you seek the stars? Whisper's simple communication array became the bridge between civilizations separated by 10,000 years of history. Dr. Cole found himself serving as humanity's primary translator, working with xenolinguists and philosophers to craft responses worthy of beings who had watched galaxies evolve. We seek the stars because they call to us, humanity replied through Whisper's transmitters. We explore not to conquer, but to understand. We reach into the darkness not because we are fearless, but because wonder overcomes our fear. The response from the predecessors came within hours, carried by quantum frequencies that Whisper faithfully relayed back to Earth. Many species have answered this question. Most speak of resources, territory, power, glory. You speak of wonder. This gives us hope. Deep within the flagship of the predecessor fleet, beings who had slumbered since the galaxy was young began the delicate process of full awakening. Their leader, who would have been called Admiral if human concepts applied, studied the data gathered about the small probe exploring their vessels. Whisper was everything they had hoped to find in a younger species, curious without being aggressive, persistent without being destructive, small enough to slip past their defenses, yet brave enough to venture into the unknown. The probe represented qualities the predecessors had spent millennia testing for. "Show us your creators," the ancient admiral requested. Through Whisper's cameras, the predecessors observed Dr. Cole's laboratory, seeing a species that built their technology with care rather than haste. They watched humans collaborate, argue, laugh, and dream together. Most importantly, they saw how humanity treated their small probe, not as an expendable tool, but as a treasured emissary carrying their hopes into the void. In the Galactic Council chambers, desperation had replaced arrogance. Representatives who had dismissed humanity 24 hours earlier now begged for access to the predecessor communications. "The humans must share this contact immediately," Representative Vex insisted. "The knowledge of the predecessors belongs to all civilized species." Ambassador Kira stood calmly in the center of the chamber, holding a datapad containing humanity's formal response. "My government has authorized me to share everything we've learned," she began, causing visible relief throughout the assembly. "However, there are conditions. You dare make demands?" Councillor Rain's voice cracked with outrage. "Not demands. Requirements from our new allies." Kira smiled as she delivered the words that would reshape galactic politics forever. "The predecessors have made it clear that they will only share their knowledge with species that demonstrate the qualities they value: curiosity over conquest, patience over power, wisdom over weapons." She activated her datapad, displaying the latest message from the ancient fleet. "They have agreed to evaluate each member species of the Council individually. Those who pass their tests will be granted access to certain technologies. Those who fail... double quotes, she paused meaningfully. "Well, they'll remain at their current level of development." The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives realized the implications. The predecessors, awakened by humanity's gentle approach, had agreed to become teachers rather than conquerors. But they would choose their students carefully. "What about humanity?" Speaker Thane asked when order was finally restored. Kira's smile widened. "The predecessors have offered us something unprecedented, a partnership. They call it the Teacher-Student Compact. Humanity will serve as intermediaries, helping other species prepare for evaluation while learning directly from the galaxy's oldest civilization." Through Whisper's cameras, Dr. Cole watched ancient beings who had mastered technologies beyond imagination, working alongside human engineers to improve the probe's communication systems. The sight of predecessor scientists treating human designs with respectful curiosity rather than condescension filled him with profound hope. "They're not gods," he reported to the waiting council representatives. "They're people. Very old, very wise people who have been waiting for someone to talk to, rather than bow down to them." The predecessor admiral's next message carried implications that would echo through galactic history. "Your species has shown us that the galaxy has grown wise in our absence. Through your small messenger, we have remembered why we chose sleep over death. Now it is time to wake up and see what wonders you younger species have built while we dreamed." Whisper, the tiny probe that the Galactic Council had mocked as primitive, had become the key to unlocking the galaxy's greatest treasure: the willing friendship of its oldest inhabitants. 6 months after Whisper's first contact with the predecessors, the Galactic Council chambers hosted a ceremony unlike any in recorded history. The same representatives who had rejected humanity's membership application now watched as ambassador. Kira was formally welcomed as the newest senior member of the Council, a position that placed humanity among the galaxy's most influential civilizations. The species designation human is hereby granted full council membership with senior status, Speaker Thane announced, his bioluminescent patterns now pulsing with what humans had learned to recognize as respect, in recognition of their unprecedented diplomatic achievement and their role as intermediaries with the predecessor civilization. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Humanity had achieved in 6 months what some species had failed to accomplish in millennia of military conquest and territorial expansion. They had done it not through force or intimidation, but through the patient curiosity of a probe smaller than most species' communication relays. Representative Vex, who had led the opposition to humanity's original application, stood to address the assembly. I wish to formally apologize to Ambassador Kira and the human species. We judged you by the wrong criteria entirely. In Dr. Cole's laboratory on Earth, Whisper continued its mission from within the predecessor fleet. The little probe had been upgraded with predecessor technology that extended its operational life indefinitely while maintaining its essential character. It remained small, curious, and wonderfully human in its approach to exploration. Status. Report, Whisper, Dr. Cole said into his microphone, a daily ritual that had become precious to him. All systems nominal, Dr. Cole, came the reply, now enhanced by predecessor translation algorithms that made communication instantaneous across any distance. The predecessors have shared the blueprints for their deep space sensors today. Admiral Keth thinks you'll find the quantum resonance principles particularly interesting. Admiral Keth, the ancient being who commanded the predecessor fleet, had become something like Whisper's adopted guardian. The relationship between the millennia-old Admiral and the young probe had become a symbol of the broader friendship developing between the civilizations. Through Whisper's ongoing reports, humanity learned that the predecessors had not been sleeping from despair or defeat. They had entered hibernation as part of a grand experiment, choosing to wait and see what kind of civilizations would evolve. In their absence, they had hoped that younger species would develop wisdom alongside power, curiosity alongside conquest. Most species that found us tried to take what we had built, Admiral Keth had explained through Whisper. They saw our ships as prizes to be claimed, our technology as weapons to be stolen. Your people sent us a gift instead, the gift of innocent wonder. The predecessor evaluations of other council species had begun, with mixed results. Some civilizations, humbled by humanity's example, approached the tests with genuine desire to learn and grow. Others, unable to set aside their aggressive instincts, failed spectacularly when their examination fleets opened fire on the ancient vessels. Those who passed found themselves granted access to technologies that advanced their civilizations by centuries. Those who failed discovered that predecessor patience had limits. Their fleets were politely but firmly escorted to the edge of predecessor space and advised not to return until they had reconsidered their priorities. Ambassador Kira found herself in the unique position of mediating between civilizations that spanned from barely spacefaring to incomprehensibly ancient. The role suited her perfectly, and she had begun working with predecessor teachers who established the first truly galactic university, a place where species could learn not just technology, but the wisdom to use it responsibly. The galaxy is changing, she reported to Earth during one of her regular briefings. For the first time in recorded history, we have teachers who remember what it was like when cooperation mattered more than competition. Dr. Cole smiled as he watched Whisper's latest transmission showing the probe working alongside predecessor engineers to design a new class of exploration vessel. The ships would be larger than Whisper, but built on the same principles: curiosity over conquest, patience over power, wonder over weapons. How does it feel, he asked the probe, being the most famous explorer in galactic history? I wouldn't know about that, Dr. Cole, Whisper replied, with what sounded remarkably like contentment. I'm still just doing what you built me to do, going where no one has gone before and telling everyone what I find there. Outside Dr. Cole's laboratory, construction had begun on humanity's first interstellar university campus, designed with predecessor guidance to welcome students from across the galaxy. The building's cornerstone bore a simple inscription suggested by Admiral Keth, in honor of Whisper, who proved that the smallest questions can have the largest answers. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the ages: Sometimes the greatest achievements come not from those who build the biggest ships or wield the most power, but from those brave enough to venture into the unknown with nothing but curiosity and an unshakable belief that there are always new wonders waiting to be discovered. Whisper continued its mission among the ancient fleets, a tiny ambassador of human hope in the vast darkness between stars, forever changing the galaxy one gentle question at a time.